What's up guys, Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 124, which is coming to us live on Friday night on Fight Pass. And this is another really good card, man. LFA has absolutely been on fire to start 2022 with a bunch of just really good matchups, really good fighters on display, and this Friday is going to be no different. So with that said, let's get right into the first fight of the night. First fight on the main card is Kasey Tanner versus Tristan Lindi at 135 pounds. And Kasey Tanner is an Illinois native who's training down at Fight Ready in Arizona. Really good camp, really good room to be in there. He is a 5-0 pro. He was 4-0 as an amateur, so he's yet to taste defeat in the cage. He has 3 finishes in his 5 wins, and he fought last 2 times on CFFC and won both of those fights. So that's a really promising resume for a 5-0 fighter that's fighting on the main card of LFA 124 here. Striking-wise, he keeps the guard high, good awareness defensively, able to get out of the way a lot or block a lot of the incoming attacks. Not a ton of volume on the feet from what I've been able to see, but he comes forward, tries to pressure you against the cage. He's got nice low kicks. Grappling-wise, he is very strong in the clinch, good takedown defense, and we've seen really good work from him on the ground. He passes guard, does damage, looks for submissions, and that's where he looks the best and does his best work. Really good top game that I've seen from him thus far. Lindi, on the other hand, was a 5-0 amateur with an 80% finish rate, so stellar career on the amateur circuit. Has had a bit of a rocky start to his pro career, started 2-1, had some tough matchups in his last 2. He just fought John Duma on CES in his last fight and was finished by a Darce there. He has been submitted in 2 out of his 3 losses, and he is 2-3 as a pro so far. But in those 2 wins, they've both been knockout wins, so that's good to see. You know, he technically does have that 100% finishing rate. Striking wise, man, this guy has a pretty short reach at 62 inches. That's what he was listed at on his last CES fight. So it's a bit hard for me to see him having a ton of success at range in this match. He has shown the ability to finish guys with strikes though, so Tanner will have to be mindful of that. Lindi fights out of the southpaw stance, and sometimes that can trip guys up, so another thing just to keep in mind. He does have pretty decent stand-up from what I've been able to see on tape. Was able to find a home for that left hand against Duma, landed a few good combinations as well. We've seen him struggle against grapplers before, however. He is liable to be submitted, has been subbed in 2 of those 3 losses as I mentioned, but he was also a submission machine on the amateur circuit with 3 rear naked chokes, so you know, it's going to be interesting. Definitely, I feel like he's a little better than that 2-3 record, but I'm going to have to go with Kasey Tanner here. I'm going to trust the fight-ready product to get it done. I think he's the better all-around fighter here, but it's just tough to want to get involved on a minus 650 line, so in all likelihood, I'll just be sitting back and enjoying this one. Next fight on the card is going to be between Austin Wourms and Jacobi Jones at lightweight, and Wourms is coming in on 2 straight wins. One his LFA debut in December as a sizable underdog to Chris Renteria. He won that by first round armbar, and it was a pretty good performance. Was pretty quick. As soon as he got taken down, you know, he went for it right away and was able to lock it up. He is a 4-3 professional, and he also coaches MMA. Interesting to note, he has a 100% finish rate, but he has been finished by strikes in all of his losses. I'm not really a huge fan of the striking of Austin Wourms. I think there are a few holes that could potentially be exploited here, particularly defensively, but he has a really good jiu-jitsu game. All 4 wins have come by submission. He can be taken down, doesn't really seem to mind being on his back too much because he does get to work on his sub game there. Worked really well against the wrestling attack of Chris Renteria last time out, was able to get that armbar quickly, and he's really good specifically at getting that armbar when he gets taken down, and he's been able to get it really quick too in a couple fights. I think that Jacobi Jones is going to be a sterner test in that aspect, but you always got to be aware when you go to the ground with Wourms because he is really dangerous there. Jacobi Jones, a 3-0 prospect from Colorado, training at Factory X, 5-1 amateur turned pro last March. All 3 pro fights have come on LFA, 1 submission, 2 unanimous decisions. Faced a really tough guy in Logan Paxton from Elevation Fight Team last time out. I believe that Jones is the cleaner stand-up in this match, has a pretty good process on the feet, more defensively responsible than his opponent will be, snaps a jab out, gets to work behind it, has some kicks that he'll use as well, likes to get inside and get some wrestling going too. He's a good wrestler, definitely will need to be mindful if he does take Wourms down here. I think that Jones will have success on the feet, however. Not sure he really needs to utilize a ton of wrestling in this match. By doing that, he might actually be giving Wourms more of a chance to win just because he is so dangerous off his back. But I'm going to go with Jacobi Jones here. I feel like Jones is the better striker. I think he's the better wrestler too. We'll need to be careful of the submission game of Wourms. I believe Wourms will have an advantage with the pure jiu-jitsu side, but I think that Jones is the better fighter here, and I think that after this one, he improves his record to 4-0. Next, we're going to go up to the heavyweight division for a bout between Waldo Cortes-Acosta and Derrick Weaver. Cortes-Acosta is a 4-0 fighter out of Arizona. Quite a big guy, 6'4", 78-inch reach, and has some pretty decent wins as well for a 4-0 guy. Defeated Motorice on Bellator back in November. His striking is good, pretty good 1s and 3s, pretty solid power in the jab, mixes up his attack to the body and head, starts to let some combinations go once he gets into rhythm, and he has 10 pro boxing bouts as well, a 6-4 record in that arena. And he showed some pretty good takedown defense in that Motorice fight, not bad in the clinch. Weaver, on the other hand, has had a bit of an up and down career, a 7-7 record so far, has more experience than Cortes-Acosta, but not the best competition ever, but still 14 pro fights, that's nothing to scoff at. He was 3-5 to end 2016, comes back to the octagon in 2018, and he is 4-1 since then. He has a 100% finish rate with 4 knockouts, 3 submissions, but he also has been stopped in all 7 of his losses, so he's never gone the distance in 14 fights. If there's a good number on fight doesn't go the distance, that might be a good play, but I seriously doubt that that number will be good. His striking-wise, his hands are a little bit low at times in the stand-up. I think that Cortes-Acosta will be able to land some clean strikes in the exchanges. Striking defense on Weaver also just not the greatest. Gets into some wild exchanges at times. He is a big guy at 6'4" and does have the power to end the fight like that, but I just don't know if that's a battle he's going to win against Acosta. Haven't gotten to see a ton of grappling from him in his fight against Chandler Cole. He didn't look super adept in that aspect of the game. I kind of doubt that this fight goes to the ground very much without maybe a knockdown putting it there first. But I am going to pick Cortes-Acosta here. I think he's the more polished striker, more weapons on the feet. I think he's the cleaner boxer. And I see him getting this one done with a KO. Not really interested in getting involved at this one with the line being at minus 550. But yeah, for a pick, I'm going to go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta here. So now we've arrived at the featured bout on the card, and this is going to be contested between Ahmad Suhail Hassanzada and James Windson at lightweight. So Hassanzada is a 7-1 fighter out of Afghanistan. Will have some height in this matchup at 6'1". He's a tall and long lightweight, has a 100% finish rate, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions. And he's a good striker. He likes to stay at range. He likes that 1-2. He's got a solid jab and a good cross. Pretty good boxer. When he lands that 2 just right, he can put guys on skates a little bit. Good kicks to the body. We've seen him taken down before, though. He has decent takedown defense, but I can't shake the feeling that at some point in this fight he will end up on his back. He's dangerous on the ground, has 4 submissions. Windson, he's 100% going to try to take him down as much as possible here, and I think that Hassanzada is going to need to work to get up in this fight. If he can keep this standing, though, for 2 out of the 3 rounds, or maybe even just 1.5 rounds, I think that he's extremely live in this matchup. James Windson is a 4-0 fighter from King's MMA, a former Stanford wrestler, made his LFA debut last year and won a wrestling-heavy decision. And, the narrative coming into that fight was, just wondering if he was for real or not, having only fought very low-level competition on Gladiators Challenge. Didn't exactly face a world beater in his next fight. On LFA, he fought a 2-2 Daniel Jefferson and went the distance with him after getting 3 straight finishes against kind of bottom-of-the-barrel opposition on Gladiator Challenge. But he's working with really great guys at Kings. Worked closely with Beneil Dariush, I believe. Seen him on Instagram with RDA, Marvin Vettori. So he keeps really excellent company. I don't really think that standing with Hassanzada here is going to be in Wilson's best interest. In his fight against Jefferson did have some moments on the feet, and I know that Windson has been working on his Muay Thai over the years. His stand-up is improving, but I just see Hassanzada being slightly better in that arena. The wrestling is the bread and butter for Windson, and that's really no secret. He does need to wrestle to win here. I think he needs 2 rounds of control time for a victory. I do think that, that's a very real possibility. He's a strong guy, got a thick build, but I'm going with the underdog here, Hassanzada, at plus 240. I think he's much too big of an underdog in this fight. He's a slick fighter with a 100% finish rate, and if he can avoid getting held down for 2 out of the 3 rounds, I think that he can have some real success on the feet against Windson. So I actually do have a small stab at the dog on the money line at plus 240. I think that Hassanzada does have the finishing upside here as well, but Wilson definitely could come out and work that wrestling, but at the current number, I feel like there's not a lot of value on Wilson at minus 300. I think there is a bit of value on Hassanzada at plus 240. So yeah, like I said, I got a small stab on the underdog in this one. That's going to bring us up to the co-main event, and this is a pretty awesome matchup between Clayton, Carpenter, and Winston Ramos. And Carpenter is a 5-0 prospect. He is 25 years old. His last 3 fights have all been in the LFA, and the last 2 came in under a minute combined. He had a 45-second knee bar against Nick Clem, 13-second head kick against Rodney Kialohi. He has 4 finishes in 5 fights. He's an MMA lab product, great camp, just on fire at the moment. Really good guys in that room. Carpenter is an IBJJF world champion. He is a Golden Gloves boxing champ at the junior level, and he is also a 4-time national champion in Muay Thai. So, I think it's safe to say the guy's pretty good. Striking-wise, he has excellent stand-up, great kicks as you might expect, 2 head kick KOs so far as a professional. Grappling-wise, he has good takedowns, really good ground game. He's well built physically, really strong at 125 pounds, and, the guy's really good. There's not a whole lot to not like about Clayton Carpenter. Ramos, on the other hand, is an amazing jiu-jitsu player, no-gi world champ, European champ, 3-time Brazilian national champ, trains at Checkmat in South Carolina. He is 4-1 as a pro in MMA. Kind of a funny first pro fight where he illegally kneed Fard Muhammad, and then Muhammad recovered and illegally kneed him back, so the ref double disqualified them, and it ended in a no contest. Kind of an interesting circumstance there. He rematched Muhammad after that and lost a decision. Muhammad was 3-6 at the time, so that's not the greatest loss to have on your resume. Ramos then wins 3 more fights with some early round 1 finishes. Combined opponent record of the 3 was 1-7 though, and he defeated Anthony Canzano in his last fight with a round 1 rear naked choke, and that was Canzano's first pro loss, and he's a pretty good fighter, so that's a pretty solid win for Ramos there. That was 2 years ago, and Carpenter has had like 4 fights in that time span since Ramos had his last one, so that's definitely something to note. Striking wise for Ramos, he's not a bad striker, but I really don't think he's going to have a whole lot for Carpenter on the feet. If this fight is standing for 3 rounds, I think that Carpenter probably eats him up in that aspect. I couldn't find a ton of tape on Ramos. I do know that he has some Muay Thai and boxing in his back pocket. I just don't see him having the striking advantage in this fight. Jiu-jitsu wise, he's an excellent jiu-jitsu player. That's where he finds the success in his fights, getting it to the ground early, getting a dominant position, and finishing. He does a good job of taking the back. He's a champion jiu-jitsu black belt, so, very skilled on the mat. I'm sure that's not hard for you guys to believe. Not sure that he's going to be able to pull out one of those quick submission wins, though, against Carpenter, and I think that a lot of Ramos' win equity in this match is going to be getting an early finish, so I kind of see Carpenter taking over more and more as this fight wears on. I also could see Carpenter getting a quick finish, as he has done in the past, but I think that if this fight does go longer, it's going to lean towards Carpenter's favor even more. So I'm going with Clayton Carpenter here. I think he's the much more well-rounded. I think he will have the striking advantage and still be competitive in the grappling. He's been much more active. He's fighting at a camp that's just on fire right now. So yeah, I like Carpenter to get the win here in the co-main, and I don't think minus 215 is too bad of a price on him. Alright, and that's going to bring us up to this monster of a main event. We have Jussier Formiga coming up against Felipe Bunes at flyweight. And Jussier Formiga, man, I don't think I have to introduce this guy too much. Tenured UFC fighter, has found himself back on the proving grounds here. Not many guys we talk about on these regional shows that can boast a resume like this. I'm sure everyone's familiar, but just in case, I'll hit some of the highlights for you. Wins over 125-pound UFC champion Davison Figueiredo, Bellator 135-pound champion Sergio Pettis, wins over guys like Wilson Heiss. The list goes on. He has had some losses, but we're talking about losses, man, and we talk about a lot on these regional breakdowns, a couple losses that, this guy's pretty good here and there. Listen to these losses, man. We got Brandon Moreno, former champion, Henry Cejudo, former champion, Ian McCall, Joe Benavidez, right? Like, he did end his UFC career on a 3-fight skid to Joey B, Moreno, and Alex Perez, but Bunes hasn't had even close to the level of competition we're talking about here. But Formiga is 36 years old now, at 125 pounds, so there are definitely questions to be asked there. But, also with regard to Bunes' competition, he's fought a very strong strength of schedule compared to a lot of guys that we'd see making their debut on one of these regional shows. Striking-wise, Formiga is more of a counter striker. He doesn't have a ton of volume on the feet, but he's also been standing in front of other really good strikers in his last fights. When you run the tape on this guy, it's not like he has any layup matches that you're watching, right? So grappling-wise, we know he's a black belt. He's an elite-level grappler. Good trips in the clinch, strong double-leg takedown, good back takes, very solid defensively as well. Not an easy guy to get down whatsoever. Will he still be as spry in these moments as he once was? I think that's a fair question, a fair concern. He clearly has slowed down a little bit, as we saw in the last portion of his UFC career, but he really doesn't need to look better than ever before to win this fight, in my opinion. You got to wonder about the durability a little bit. 6 UFC losses, and he was stopped on strikes in 4 of them. Felipe Bunes, on the other hand, is an 11-5 fighter representing the Pitbull brothers, and kind of by virtue of training at that camp, you get to come train at Fight Ready as well. Did see him getting some work in with Figueiredo in the lead up to that Moreno fight, some work in with Rizkobek Ibrahimov, who we just saw on LFA in the co-main event of the last card. And Bunes is a finisher. The guy has a 91% finish rate with 8 submissions, got off to a solid 8-2 start in his career, then headed over to Russia, scored a round 1 KO on Fight Nights Global. Then his next fight, he goes to ACB and submits Yoni Sherbatov with a flying triangle armbar in the first round. And that's a really good opponent, really good win. His next 2 fights in ACA, he gets undefeated Russians, man. Kind of a tough draw there, and loses both of those by decision. That was to Mansur Khatayev and Murad Magomedov, and Magomedov is still undefeated to this day. In Bunes' next fight, he draws Imran Bukuev, who was 10-1 at the time, and Bunes drops another decision to him. So at this point, he's lost 3 straight. But then in his next ACA fight, he gets Mikhail Silander, who, granted he is a bit of a step down from some of those guys, but still a very solid guy. And Bunes is able to finish him with the triangle armbar in round 2. That's a really nice win. So Bunes is definitely a skilled fighter, but he's going to need to be really good against a pretty stern test in Jussier Formiga here. Striking wise, Bunes will be taller. I believe he will be longer as well, and I think he'll be a little bit more willing to go first in the striking exchanges. See him kind of being on the outside. I think that Formiga will probably want to corral him towards the fence, probably try to get in on a shot. Bunes could possibly have a little bit more success on the feet than Formiga here, though. Half of Formiga's losses have come via him being stopped by strikes. 4 out of his 6 most recent losses, so all of his UFC losses, have come by strikes. Grappling-wise, Bunes is a skilled grappler. He's a very dangerous submission threat. Formiga has never been submitted in 31 fights, though, so I really am, not really counting on Bunes getting a submission if he does win this one. I think that Bunes will probably go for some takedowns during this fight, but I think they're going to be pretty difficult to come by. Formiga did have an 80% takedown defense 87% takedown defense in the UFC. And if Bunes is able to get him down, I think he'll probably be able to stay safe on top in terms of submissions. But, I wouldn't put it past Formiga to sweep him or find his way to a dominant position somehow from being on his back, just because he is so good there. And Formiga, the other thing is that he might be a little bit too comfortable on his back and maybe burn around if Bunes does happen to get him down there. But like I said, I think that Formiga is going to be a tough guy to get down. And most of the fights that Bunes is losing are coming against guys who he kind of can't get down or who are able to get him down. When he doesn't have that grappling advantage, it makes his path a little bit more difficult in his fights. So it's kind of hard not to go with Jussier Formiga here. I want to give Bunes his due because he is legit, but we have 2 jiu-jitsu specialists going at it here, and I think that Formiga has the edge in that aspect. Also just has that extremely high-level experience to draw on. So, Bunes is definitely serious, man. He's a good fighter, and if he was coming in here against a different guy, I might see this a little differently, but I am going to side with Formiga here. He opened way too wide, but that line has gotten a little closer. I'm still not sure if I really want to be involved in this. I think there's just a lot of question marks about what Formiga is going to look like. But, from what we're watching on tape, I still feel that I'm going to stay with Jussier Formiga here. Not sure if I'm going to have a play here or not. We'll have to see. But this is definitely going to be an awesome main event between 2 really good fighters. And really excited to see how this plays out on Friday. So that's going to do it for my LFA 124 predictions, guys. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. Best of luck this weekend with any bets that you choose to make. And take care. I'll catch you on the next one.